It is clear for the Cincinnati Reds to continue hanging on to whatever sliver of playoff hopes that they possibly have and finish this season strong. Elly De La Cruz has to finish this season strong.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. My name's Stephen Offenbaker. His name is Jeff Carr, and we love baseball. We love the Cincinnati Reds. We love talking about baseball. We love talking about the Reds. We've been doing it in podcast form for a combined 14 years. Love talking baseball with you. On today's show, we know you have thoughts on Elly De La Cruz. We have thoughts on Elly De La Cruz. We're live. We're going to take some of your questions and comments on the Reds' best player, on all things Reds, a little bit later on in the show. In just a few minutes, we will take a look at just how good a full season of Hunter Greene would have been and what difference it would have made for the Cincinnati Reds this season. But we're going to begin with Elly because that's where the Reds began this season. They built this team around him. We're going to be talking about that coming up on today's episode that's brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, Jeff, we talked about this a lot this year, that Elly De La Cruz didn't do quite the Elly De La Cruz things, didn't do the stuff we had hoped, didn't do the things I think the Reds had hoped. This team was built around him. As we record, they're 4 games back of the final wild card spot. They're tied with the San Francisco Giants right now. They're in a dogfight, and things are going to have to go almost nearly perfect for them to pull this out. And that starts with Elly De La Cruz.
Yeah, I know that you and Tim, which, by the way, thanks for covering for me last week. It's nice to be back. But I know that you and Tim had basically declared that you're kind of done with the playoff hopes, and I'm pretty much there. Like, I think I'm like 99.5% there, but that 0.5% is being really loud right now because the Reds just got done beating the Mets. And we'll talk about how that momentum really plays into this next week and all of that a little bit later on in this. And really, I wanted to start with Elly because even in the win yesterday, it was clear that if Elly does the things that he did leading into the month of August, this team is so much different because he had the big hit that brought in Noelvi Marte to make this game what it was for the Reds. And then he was able to score, on Austin Hayes' single following his at bat there and got the Reds to 3 runs. And I get it. They didn't go crazy. The bats have been going crazy this past week. It's the pitching that let him down. But Elly's been the one that's been watching all of this. He's been the one that's been cheering everybody on because he himself is not participating in it because he's been so bad recently. Steve, his last 28 days, dude's batting .213. When it comes to, what the Reds are looking at him for. And has he moved in the lineup? No. Has he taken an off day? No. I mean, he DH'd one day, but are we really counting that? That's half of an off day. So when it comes to all of this, we're going to get to the end of the season and say, man, Elly De La Cruz played every day. And what happens after that but really is going to be what he does here in the month of September because the Reds need him. They made this team to follow his lead, and that's why this month of August has been so bad for them.
When we look back on this season, I think the decision to let Elly De La Cruz play all 162 games will be the decision that we point to that was Tito's worst decision. My big mantra has always been that the manager, the coaching staff, the front office, they have to protect the players from themselves because, of course, the guy wants to be on the field. Of course, the guy wants to be the center of everything. But you can't realistically say that Elly playing 162 is not going to have impacts. I know we usually do the comments later, but this is a great one for the talk right now. Chad Love says, Elly should have taken a day off through the season to keep fresh. This is probably Tito didn't have him stealing 80 bases. Fatigue is hard to work through, even for regular working stiffs. This is true. I know that Elly's legs were an issue, but I also think there is a point here that Chad is making that playing all 162, I think that weighed into some of Tito's decision-making. He traded Steals for Elly playing every single game, and I don't think that helped the Reds. I think this decision is one we'll look back on and say, Tito got this one wrong.
I had a great kind of back and forth in the DMs on Twitter with our friend Adrian, and he had mentioned, he's like, man, it's like super admirable though that Elly's played every day. I'm like, yeah, it can be admirable, but admirable doesn't necessarily mean beneficial, and it's not been beneficial for him. It's not been beneficial for the team, because it's clear that what happens is Terry Francona is a very player forward manager, and he's able to connect with his players because of that. What's up, Adrian? But the way and the style in which he goes about that is, it's a dialogue. It is not a, hey, Elly, you're taking today off. It's, hey, Elly, how you feeling today? You feel like taking a day off? And there's no realm of reality unless Elly's just got like no feeling on his left side or something, that he's going to say, no, I'm not ready to take a day off yet here. So that's not going to be something that ever happens. And I feel like, Steve, like this is the problem with what Nick Krall has done this offseason. We beg them to go get a power hitting guy, somebody they can put in the cleanup spot. We beg them to up the profile of the home run hitting capabilities of this lineup. And they said no. And I think a small part of that was they hoped Christian Encarnacion Strand could do anything, which, by the way, you know, people got his bobblehead on Saturday. I wonder if he got his bobblehead if he was on attendance in that game. But that didn't happen. The biggest part of that was Elly De La Cruz will carry this lineup. And for a little bit this season, we saw that. But for the last month now, we've been hearing Barry. We've been hearing Jeff Brantley. We've been hearing Chris Welsh. We've been hearing John Sadak. We've been hearing Tommy Thrall. We've been hearing anybody that watches this team say Elly looks tired. And that's not a physical observation. It's a mental observation. And you can see it. His last month, Steve, he struck out over 30% of the time. And we had praised him for much of the season because he had cut his strikeout rate so far down. But it's because when you're stepping up to the plate every single day and you go through the month of August where you see your batting average crater from 285 all the way down to 270, you're getting up there and you're like, I got to get 5 hits in this at bat right here so I can climb back up there on the batting average ladder. And it's just not working. And I think that we will say how admirable it is that he played the entire year and he did not take a day off. And I hope for his sake that it affects the future of his career positively, because it has derailed 2025 for him and arguably for the team. I mean, there's definitely other factors that have gone into this. We will talk a lot about that once the Reds are like officially eliminated from the playoff race, but there's still like this tiny little sliver of hope. And if he can give them what he gave them on Sunday for the rest of this season, that sliver might just grow. But he has to basically do what he's done on Sunday the rest of the way.
I'd love it if he didn't play tonight. That would be the springboard for this. And I know that sounds crazy because we're going to talk at some point in time today about what we want the Reds to do over this road trip. And Elly being good Elly is going to play a big, big, big part of that. But I think you set the tone and you start that off right if Elly sits tonight. You give him a night to just reset mentally, reset physically, and then hit the ground running starting tomorrow. Tito, if you're listening, sit Elly down tonight.
Do we remember, like, and this is what just absolutely just, it just grinds my gears a little bit. You know, you really know what grinds my gears. Going into the month of August, the slash line for Elly De La Cruz was 285, 363, 489. That's a pretty good season. And he was looking like he was just taking what he did in 2024 and doing that much more with it. And because of how bad August has been, that cratered his season slash line down to 267, 336, 445. His OPS plus now, Steve, is less than it was last year.
It's so disappointing, Jeff, because we were talking about he was having a good season. He wasn't having that MVP type face of baseball season we wanted him to have, but he was having a really good season. If he had continued the way that he had, July, August time, he would have finished between 20 and 25 home runs. He can still get a few more under his belt. He's sitting at 19 right now. If I've got the thing memorized in my head.
19.
he could have been. And you're right. It's very clear. You can look and see the time where he really ran out of gas. You can see it in the stats lines.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but we know that he's done it earlier this season. Can he tap back into that? That is going to be the biggest key for the Reds to hold on to this like 0.5% chance that I'm arbitrarily giving them of making the playoffs. I also know this, Steve, like it's clear after the way that he pitched on Sunday, a full year from Hunter Greene would be the most fun that we Reds fans have ever had with a pitcher. We'll explain coming up next. Did you know that most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments? And when you don't have that full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization for your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. Make sure that you are subscribed. That way you become an everydayer, just like those everydayers out there. I really appreciate those that make Locked On Reds part of your everyday routine. Hit that subscribe button here on YouTube, or if you're listening after this live stream on your favorite podcasting app. Also, by the way, check out the Locked On Reds Discord. No, we haven't shouted that out in a little bit. We still have the link down in the description to the Locked On Reds Discord group. A lot of great folks talking Reds baseball over there. Going to try to be very active during this West Coast road trip. Some late night Reds. Love having discussions in the Discord with everybody there. Steve, Hunter Greene was, I'm going to get really analytical with it about Sunday. He's real freaking good on Sunday. He pitched amazing. Got to a point like I think he got an out. I want to say I'm trying to remember who it was. I can't remember the exact guy for the Mets lineup, but he got a ground out for the third out of the second inning, and I was disappointed because I'm like, man, get 6 strikeouts in a row, huh? Like he started with 5 strikeouts in a row. Like, let's get free pizza by like the 4th inning. What do you say here, dude? But man, Hunter Greene was on Sunday.
And that's been his trend. His stat line is moving that way. You framed this really, really well, I think, in just saying, this was his 16th start. If you doubled that out to 32 and just kind of tried to visualize what a full season of Hunter Greene looked like, it'd be 180 innings. Cool. That's what we wanted from him. It'd be 32 starts. You look at his strikeout numbers, it'd be 200 and 226 strikeouts. Honestly, Jeff, we'd be talking Cy Young is what we'd be doing.
Yeah, and we said this whenever I said this whenever he was called up. I know you kind of tried to cool me down a little bit when I was getting real excited about the potential of Hunter Greene's career. But I said this whenever he was called up. I expect that he will be in the Cy Young conversation for the majority of his career. And the only thing that has derailed that has been health. He just hasn't pitched a full season. And he's probably going to finish the year maybe with 20 starts. I'm not looking at the schedule right now to know specifically, but it's going to be like 19 or 20 starts. There's never going to be a Cy Young that only starts 19 or 20 games and gets that. I forget how much Paul Skeens pitched. I could be wrong about that, but like,
and by the way, that would be a career low for Hunter Greene, by the way.
Yeah, so he's not taking that step forward like we really wanted him to. And that was kind of our only expectation for him this year, was to take the step forward with the games pitched. Hopefully he can do that 2026. We will push that hope out to next year. But he's just been so good. And on top of the strikeouts, he has just absolutely cut his walk rate in half. And that's not even over dramatizing it. Like his walk rate last year was a 3.4 walks per nine. And this year it's 1.9. Okay, so not quite half. It's almost half. But like that's amazing.
It really is. And his strikeout number is up. He went from 10.1 strikeouts per nine to 11.3 strikeouts per nine. And those are the two numbers I like to look at when we're just trying to paint a quick picture of what a pitcher's doing. 11.3 strikeouts per nine, 1.9 walks per nine. That's really, really good. I'll take that. You're absolutely right, Jeff. The talent level, when he's on the field, Hunter Greene is amazing. It's just that if he's going to be on the field and if he's going to be available, he's hit those starts right now, Jeff. I mean, really, the 10 starts difference would have made the Reds would be in a wild card spot right now. They would be in a wild card spot right now if Hunter Greene had been healthy.
If you had to put an amount of money that would hurt on whether or not he would make 30 starts, let's say next year.
Nope.
I don't think I would either.
Nope.
That's the hardest.
You'd have to set an over under at like 24 and a half starts for him next year and decide if you really believe he's going to evolve forward. And if at 24 and a half, I might be willing to play around with it a little bit.
Yeah, I might take the over on 24 and a half. What about 26 and a half?
I would be real reluctant to put significant anything on 26.
Feels like 26 is the number.
That's
because I want to, and I think that's the hardest part. And I remember, you remember anytime Joey Votto talked about statistics, he would talk about some analytics that he really liked, but the one number that he loved the most was games played. And anytime I've talked with Bronson Arroyo, he talked about, starts made, innings pitched, things like that, where it's like we as fans want to get really deep and analytical and looking at the strikeouts and looking at the walks per nine and all this other stuff. Like most guys, they're looking at your longevity. How good are you at staying on the field? And that's the one thing that's almost impossible to predict until you see it. And so until we see Hunter Greene give us 28, 30, even 32 starts, it's going to be hard for me to say, yeah, he could do that, because there's just these little things. And I get it. This year was some freak groin injury that every test and, medical dumb that every time he thinks, yes, I did. Yeah, the Quirky Picker.
Yeah, Chad. The Quirky Picker Chad says, Jeff, didn't you have a preseason bet on how many strikeouts Hunter Greene would have this season?
I did. I took the over on that quite confidently. And
didn't you do it twice by mistake? Was that the one you bet twice by mistake?
No, I twice by mistake. I took him to win the Cy Young. So not going to happen on that one either. But yeah, there was some interesting preseason. Man, I was looking back at those. Yeah, we're going to talk about. This is going to be a whole segment about the preseason overs that I took. That I'm just like, wow. But I really think that that's going to be his high watermark. Like, can he make 30 starts? Because until he does, I just don't think I'm going to predict that he will.
And this still fits the narrative we're trying to pitch, folks. I know we just did a whole segment on Elly's playing too much, and now you hear us saying Hunter's not playing enough. and we're referencing Joey Votto talking about your best stature availability, your games played. But also remember that Joey learned along the way and said that one of his big lessons in baseball was to be the best version of himself. He had to learn to take a day off because Joey was playing all 162 and it affected him. And he fessed up to that. And with pitching, it's different. With pitching, you're playing once every 5 days. You need to be healthy. You need to build up your arm. You need to build up the amount of innings you can pitch in a season. But we're not saying, bullpen usage of a guy should pitch in 80 games. We're talking about starting pitchers making a full season's worth of starts. That's 32. That's not playing every day. You have your off days, you have your rest. So this narrative all fits, Jeff. We're not talking out of both sides of our mouths here. This all comes together in what would have benefited the Reds the most.
The trend analysis in my brain is trying to really spin this because like his rookie year, he made 24 starts. Second year, he made 22. Then 2024, he made 26 starts. He's liable to make 19 or 20 this year. So does he take another step forward next year, get to 28 or even 30, just based on how it's kind of like more, less, more, less, more? maybe we
mean-
see that.
I mean,
next
just
season,
look at the numbers like this. Let's make it easier, just a little bit. Instead of 32, let's say 30 starts. Hunter Greene is going to have missed a full 33% of his starts this year. That is a big deal for this Cincinnati Reds team. That's a huge deal. A third of his starts he missed.
for a team that cannot, as it has told us, compete with the big boys and sign multiple big-time contracts, the guys that they give the big-time contracts to have to perform. And Hunter just has to throw 30 starts next year. I really think that's going to be our big expectation of him.
All right, Jeff, I know this. We've got a lot of things we're going to get to in this show. We got a lot of things that are kind of sitting just off to the side that we're going to roll out when the playoff chase is officially over, when the season officially ends. We got all that stuff coming. But what we're going to do here in just a second is get to the questions in the comment. It's my favorite part of these live shows. We're diving into the comment section coming up next.
Today's episode of Locked On Reds is brought to you by Zippix Toothpicks. Whether you're looking for nicotine satisfaction or an energy boost, Zippix has you covered with their nicotine and caffeine-infused toothpicks. For nicotine users, Zippix provides a discreet way to satisfy cravings and that hand-to-mouth habit without vaping or smoking. Zippix can be a helpful tool as you look to work to reduce your dependence on vaping and smoking. It's available in 6 great flavors with 2 and 3 milligram nicotine options. And if you need energy without the crash, their caffeine toothpicks are a game changer. Go to zippixtoothpicks.com and use the code Locked On for 10% off your first order. Must be 21 or older to order. Warning, nicotine is an addictive chemical. That's zippixtoothpicks.com. Promo code LOCKEDON. Zip more, smoke less with Zippix Toothpicks.
If you can't watch us here on YouTube, you can listen to us on your favorite podcasting app. We're pretty much on every single one of them. If you find one that we're not and you need us to be, message Jeff. Also, make sure to check out Locked On MLB Game Night. They watch every single game every single night so that you don't have to. All right, Jeff, let's get into the questions and the comment section. This is an interesting little discussion that is playing out in the chat right now based on those first 2 segments. It's very funny because Stone Cold says he doesn't think players stay in shape over the offseason and therefore are not able to play as much in the season as players used to be. Carrick jumps right in and says, I think today's players put in a lot more work during the offseason. I love you get both sides of the spectrum here at the Locked On Reds live chat. I think I lean more towards what Carrick said here. Guys eat healthier, they stay in shape. I see the stuff on the IG that they're out playing around in the offseason and doing stuff. That's their vacation mode. How many best shape of their lives conversations do we have at the beginning of spring training each and every
We said
year?
that about Hunter. We said that about, and it was clear, like everybody was saying that about Hunter. It wasn't like we saw one picture and said that. Like everybody was like, dude, he is cut. He came into camp ready to go. And all due respect, Stone Cold says so. They created spring training because guys in the past were out of shape when they showed up to the team ready for the season. Like they weren't ready for the season because back then they didn't make enough money to be a baseball player year round. So when the season was done, they went off and they did other things. And when you do other things, you do as everyone else does and you become a normal person. And as fit as we like to be in our normal lives, there ain't no chance that we're in baseball shape. So they had to come up with spring training. That's not a thing anymore. Like guys have off-season training plans. Guys have never been in this good a shape. It's just, I also think that these guys have never been this worked during the season, or if they're college players during the college season or high school players, all that stuff. Like there has never been this amount of pressure on players like there has been in years past. So they do the baseball things far more frequently and far more intense than they ever have.
The spring training thing is a great point. They talk about it every year that it's too long from a hitter's perspective. The pitchers are really the problem in getting them spun up and ready. Also, the gruel of the season. You're spot on with that. Also, Jeff, yeah. One of the talking points in the expansion realignment conversation that ran rapid while you were sitting on a beach somewhere is that they may reduce the number of games in a season, cut it back from 162, maybe look back to 154, maybe look back to a little less. I can totally see that happening as well.
I mean, you go back, when did it expand to 162? It was like the 60s, wasn't it?
I think it was the 60s expansion when they brought in the Mets and the Astros. I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think.
I have to go back and look that up, because think about back then as well. Like, back then you had 2 teams from each league make the playoffs. Yeah, your top 2 NL, top 2 AL, and then the World Series. And that's what the playoffs were. So the regular season meant more. And that's why they added so much. Like, there's so many playoff teams now. It feels like, I don't know. Like, I agree with shortening the season, but I think that the physical strain that are on these guys, I mean, you talk about the pitchers with their 100-mile-an-hour cutters. You talk about the hitters that have to hit the 100-mile-an-hour cutter and all the things. And, like, I mean, Noelvi Marte's throwing 90-mile-an-hour missiles from right field. Those guys didn't do that back then.
I agree with you. All right, let's get to this. Michael Blackman says, should Nick Krall sign Sal to a long-term contract? Should Sal Stewart be in conversation for a long-term deal?
I need to see a little bit more before I go in. I know that the Brewers signed Jackson Chourio before they ever called him up. So there's that side of that argument. But even the deals that we've seen here recently, the Roman Anthony deal for the Red Sox, Roman Anthony did at least have a few major league games under his belt, and they realized, okay, the otherworldly talent that we saw in the minor leagues is real, and we need to lock this dude up long term. I would like to see just a little bit more from Sal Stewart. I'd also like to know his position. And there's an episode coming, and I'm not going to show everybody the Notes app, but while I was on the beach, I came up with like 400 different episodes that we've got to do.
I'm not joking. That's not an exaggeration.
So many. But Sal is another one in this long line of talent that the Reds organization has developed in the minor leagues with a plan that isn't necessarily super clear. I don't know where he plays, and especially after acquiring Ke'Bryan Hayes, like, what is the everyday position for Sal Stewart? Because I don't know that you can just have a roster full of super utility players like it feels like the Reds have. And so I've got to come up with a plan for that before you can sign him long term.
Do they trade Ke'Bryan Hayes? Do they shop him this offseason with an eye of, you see, the problem was Pittsburgh, because the problem is always Pittsburgh. The problem was Pittsburgh.
Doesn't matter what happens.
Look what happens when you get a guy out of Pittsburgh. You see, he's really good. What you want to give me for him? I mean, I'm just saying his value going up.
I think there's got to be some risk taken by Nick Krall this offseason. I don't know what that is, and that's going to be a long conversation that we have throughout the offseason about how he goes about this roster. But running this roster back out there next year the way that it is currently would be malpractice, and they've got to do something. Maybe Ke'Bryan Hayes is part of that. I would hate that because I like Ke'Bryan Hayes, but it would make sense from an objective standpoint.
We'll revisit that this offseason. This from Chad. Chad. Absolutely not. Chad says, could we keep the current starters and make Hunter Greene the closer? Help preserve his health. He's awfully dominant. Yeah, he's dominant for 7 and 8 innings at an outing. His health problems, I don't think, change. But if he's a starter or reliever, that's his hip is going to be his hip. It's not an arm thing. He missed the most time this year with his hip. No, we're not doing this.
Hip and groin and all that stuff.
Tell me we're not doing this.
No, I'm not interested in that at all, because we want him to throw 200 innings. As a closer, you're liable to throw 80 innings, and you're throwing too many if you throw 80 innings. So I want to see 200 innings from Hunter Greene. I don't want to see less. And I think that Sunday is the absolute pipe dream of how a game should go with Hunter, not pipe dream, because pipe dream says that it's not real. The absolute, like, perfect scenario of a Hunter Greene start. He goes 7 innings. He's completely dominant. And then you can play around with who you use out of the bullpen. They didn't use Pagan to get the save. They used Tony Santillan, and they used Nick Martinez as the guy in between. And I think that when you only have to get 6 outs from your bullpen, that is so much more valuable than a guy that can come in and give you 3.
Let's move into this for just a fun little, if it's not the Reds, Jeff, Who do we have going to the World Series from the National League? I'm going to go first. I'm going to pick the San Diego Padres because stick it to the Los Angeles deferrals. This is what I'm saying.
They do have the best bullpen, but I don't know about their starting staff. That's the thing. Like, who's going to give you the best 5 innings? And make no mistake about it, in the postseason, it gets shrunk down to 5 innings. And can you get 6 innings from a starter? Like, what does that look like? The Mets look tough with that. I'm thinking the Phillies, though. I think the Phillies make the World Series out of the National League.
Because, they got a guy from Middletown.
It helps. It helps. I've heard.
Under the next collective bargaining agreement, do you think the union will ask for rosters to expand to 27 players? They're going to ask for a lot of things because baseball is going to be asking for a salary cap. This next negotiate, that's an interesting point because does expanding it another player, Jeff, does that idea excite you? Because you look at the end of a lot of teams' benches right now, marginal players. Besides the Dodgers, right? Like marginal players.
If the Reds had 27 players on their active roster next year, does that mean that Santiago Espinal survives?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm not in on that. But no, I think that there's definitely going to be propositions made from the union on this and that and the other. If they get a salary cap, I think there will be a battle. There's going to be so many battles with this, but there will be a battle between the union and the owners of, all right, if you get a salary cap, we get shorter rookie contracts, 3 to 4 years rather than 5 to 6.
All right, let's get to this. Carrick is a good one. Do we trade Singer? He's a free agent after next season. We have the starter depth. Singer will make about $15 million next season, and Carrick thinks that Duman could be used better. That's reasonable. Yeah. The real wild card there is like the guys that are coming back from injury, right? What do you? I don't see him as an off-season trade, but he definitely could be a piece late in spring for somebody that's desperate for a starter, or later on into the season during the trade deadline, because they need to see what they've got in Brandon Williamson coming back. They need to see if Julian Aguiar is going to be a thing or not. They need to see if Rhett Lauder comes back looking healthy. They need to see if Chase Burns is ready to go. They need to see if Chase Petty has figured it out. If all of those things happen, then like you go from abundance to just absolute ugly wealth in Major League Baseball, which is starting pitching, right? Then you have the opportunity to make a move. I don't see them do it in the offseason until they can answer a lot of those questions.
I think we see Aguiar, Williamson, Lauder, 1, maybe 2 of those guys probably pitch in the Arizona Fall League. Maybe. I don't know what the rules are on that. But I think that they will try to make sure that these guys get some work in this offseason so that they're not, completely hitting the reset button in spring training next year. But when you put on paper and include the current healthy pitchers as well that the Reds have returning, they've got like 8 or 9 starters. And so if you're going to make some radical moves like I want Nick Krall to do this offseason, you're going to trade from your depth and you're going to make a risky move from somewhere else and kind of couple that together to get a big time dude. And I think that will require a pitcher. And if Brady Singer is part of that, he should be in an offseason trade. I wonder a little bit about it because the Reds are just so reticent to do something that takes away their comfort zone. And right now their comfort zone is their starting pitching. And so I don't necessarily think it is a likely scenario. But if I were writing up what the Reds should do this offseason, I think that you could definitely get something good for Brady Singer.
All right, let's do one more of these before we push a bit of a reset button, Jeff. Let's get this from Adrian. Do you think Hector Rodriguez is the opening day right fielder next year? I do not.
I think it's a failure if that's the case.
Yeah, that means they did nothing in the outfield. And also, just as an aside, Carrick said earlier in the chat that he felt like first base and an outfield position were the 2 openings that the Reds had to deal with as far as Sal Stewart goes. And I just wonder if it's first base, what are you doing with Spencer Steer?
That's a tough one because I think that he is the best fielding first baseman currently on the roster. That's not to say that they can't upgrade that. And I think that he is the best, but I don't think he's the best hitting first baseman. on the roster. And I think that's going to play a big part of it because the Reds have a light hitting third baseman already. You have some questions about Matt McLain, although he has looked better here recently. You have some questions about TJ Friedl here recently, although he's hit well. It's just not been like the power. We've seen a lot less of TJ Friedl's power this year. So I kind of wonder a little bit. And is Austin Hayes coming back? What are you doing there? I think we could see Spencer Steer in left field, but I don't think that's the best case scenario for him. I think that he likely moves back to the super utility spot and Sal Stewart, and they got to make a decision between those two guys because that kind of seems like what they're set up for both of those guys right now is super utility. And I think if you got two super utilities, you don't have any. And that also means you have a lot of other questions around the field.
And then you want wiggle in the DH spot as well. So, all right, Jeff, let's push the reset button just a little bit and move into a little bit more conversation, and we'll get back into the chat here in a few minutes. So I'm going to let you drive the ship here for a second.
The Reds have a very tough week ahead because we already know what happened on the last West Coast trip, but now they've got one more. And this is in the most crucial part of the season where they just can't lose anymore. Honestly, this is the hard part for me with this week because the A's have been very disappointing this season. They had some people, and including our friend Booney over at Locked On A's, thinking that they could surprise some folks, and they've surprised nobody, and they've been kind of bad. But they've got a lineup that can really put runs on the board in bunches via the home run. And we saw what happened against Toronto with this Reds pitching staff, and I don't really want to rehash the details of that because that was painful. But Oakland, sorry, money in the jar. The A's can hit the ball real far, especially when it starts with a rookie phenom in Nick Kurtz. And that's after you play San Diego, which every time the Reds go to San Diego, things get messy. However it happens. If they win 2 out of 3, they lose 2 out of 3, they get swept. I don't think they've swept the Padres in San Diego for a very long time. So, but you're at the point in the season now where it feels like 1 or 2 more losses might sink you. And so you've really got to go. Like, Steve, I'm thinking like 6 and or at least for this coming week, 4-2 is kind of the baseline expectation.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, you have to win 2 of 3 in San Diego. You have to win 2 of 3 in Sacramento. And then you go to St. Louis and you have to win 2 of 3. And you really need to steal a sweep in there somewhere. You hit on this when we were getting ready today. And it's absolutely the analysis of this whole situation this season. They have yet to really go on a run. They have yet to really go on a big win streak. I'm talking 6, 7, 8, 9 wins,
Their
right?
best is 5.
Their best is 5. They have to maybe do a little bit better than that right now. Because again, the urgency has to be there. And if it's not, then the season is over. The ship is sunk. 2 of 3 in each of these series is a minimum. That's the minimum expectation. You know, we talk about them doing the thing we need them to do the most frustrating way possible. That's the minimum. Anything less than that, it's done.
And they've got some interesting, I mean, we're going to see Zach Littell again. I don't know what we're getting from him, although it feels like it's every other time that he's good. Mm-hmm. So maybe we get good Zach Littell this time. And then Nick Lodolo is back from illness, at least to start this series. So it feels like you've got some interesting pitching matchups going forward. Do we see Chase Burns at all? I know he just did another bullpen and everything looks good, and hopefully we'll see him here soon. But I almost wonder, I've got some theories on that as well we'll talk about later on this week. But I think overall, like, you've got to play clean baseball. And I keep begging this to happen. And I get we didn't really discuss the error that was charged to Elly on Sunday, but I think should have been charged to Spencer Steer. But no matter what, who's at fault, they got to just play clean baseball and not have those errors and not have those moments where it's clear that they beat themselves. And you're going out on the West Coast where even the best Reds teams beat themselves a lot in the history of this franchise. So you're talking about a period in time where 500 doesn't cut it, because they did that already. They played 500 ball while the Mets collapsed, and it didn't help them. So you got to play better than 500, even and maybe even far past 500 before you can even really get excited about the 0.5% chance that we're giving them right now. And we're not calling them dead, but you can certainly see them die out on the West Coast. So you cannot go out there and lay an egg. And this Padres team, I hate doing this because evaluating the situation for the San Diego Padres right now is they're kind of gettable. They've played some bad baseball here recently. So you got to make sure they're not the Reds need to make sure that they're not the get right team for them, because they were the get right team for the Dodgers a couple of weeks ago. And you could easily see that happening here too.
Yeah. And again, there's no margin for error anymore. They use that up with dumb things like blowing the games against Toronto and opening day and those games that we did a whole show on. And that list is the difference maker. There's things you can point at, whether it's if they had Hunter Greene for a whole season, different narrative. If they had just won the games they were supposed to win and not blown them, difference maker, changes the narrative. So you're right. They go to San Diego, and you're right. For whatever reason, it does get wonky when they're playing the Padres out in San Diego. It's entertaining, but it's wonky. And you look right now, and I know we pronounced the season over. Tim and I did, pretty much. And I stand by that. I feel like if they were to somehow miraculously pull this out, Jeff, one, it would be on brand as doing the thing we asked them to do the most frustrating way possible. If they were to pull this out, A, and B, there's going to be a lot of luck involved at this point. It's not, they're going to go out there and play baseball the right way and get it done. They're going to need a lot of help. They need the Giants to collapse. They need the Mets to continue to collapse. They need to win all of their games. There's a lot of things that need to happen in order for this to pull out. So it's going to be a lot of luck versus, the baseball skill of it all. So I kind of stand by where I'm at with the playoff opportunity. I think, you call it 99.5%. That's probably fair. Looking at it realistically. But here we are in September. The Reds still have a chance. I mean, you're telling me there's a chance. There is a chance. For God's sakes, the Bengals just won the first game of the season. I mean, anything can happen. Anything can happen, Jeff.
They won the first game of the season based on their defense. And if you know anything about the Bengals, that's not what anybody would have predicted.
You see, anything can happen.
Anything can happen. It's sports, that's why they play the game. But yeah, looking at it, the last 3 series in San Diego, the Reds are 1-2 in all of those series. So they win 1, they lose 2 in the last 3 series. So they don't get swept, but they don't win either. And you got to win now. You cannot lay back and be happy about any sort of series loss. It's got to be a series win at the very least. And at this point in the season, they're going up against a team that's managed by a guy that once took the Cardinals on an insane winning streak at the Reds' expense back in 2023. Whatever Mike Schilt did to get the Cardinals to win that many games in a row, Reds got to figure that one out, because that's kind of where we are. Yep. That's kind of what they need to do. And it starts with Elly. It starts with the pitching staff. The pitching staff cannot do what it did against the Blue Jays. I wonder a little bit. Their pitching matchups that they're going against with the Padres. They got Yu Darvish tonight. There's a TBD for Tuesday and Nick Pivetta on Wednesday. Nick Pavetta's been really good this year.
And the Reds are rolling out Lodolo tonight, and then
Lodolo, Littell, and Abbott. And we're going to talk a lot more about Abbott specifically on tomorrow's podcast for sure, or the lead-in podcast for that game. But it seems like you got to win these first 2 if you're going to win this series, because I don't know that you're beating Nick Pivetta.
Right, and I mean, and going against Andrew Abbott, who, I mean, here you go, Debbie Brown in the chat. She's got the analysis. Yep. Abbott's wearing out again. That's exactly what's happening. He's wearing out. He's tired. You can tell by the way he's pitching right now.
Yeah, that's kind of, I mean, we'll dive into this a lot more on the episode right before that game, but that's where I'm at with him too, where his last 3 starts have just been so rough. And the really big difference is he's just giving up base runners, a lot of hits, a lot of walks. That's not something he's been doing this year. He's done a really good job of limiting those things. And part of it is, the batting average on balls in play against him has been higher than league average, but it's not to the point that you're like, oh my gosh, he's just getting so crazy unlucky right now. It's just we've not seen the crispness of his arsenal going against opponents, and we need to see that in San Diego against this Padres lineup. Look, the Padres, their biggest thing is Fernando Tatis. Guy's probably going to win the Platinum Glove over Ke'Bryan Hayes. He's probably going to win another Silver Slugger. Guy wins the Silver Slugger like every year. He's just been phenomenal. And I think that when you look at what he has done, when you look at what Manny Machado has done, they have guys in the middle of their lineup that you worry about. Right now, the Reds are just begging for somebody to step up each and every game. There's not really a guy that you worry about. And that's the big difference between these two ball clubs right now. Well, that and 6 games in the wild card standings, because the Padres are 6 games up on the Reds.
Let's talk a little bit about this, because this circles back, and you're back on the show after a week of rest and relaxation. So let's get into this comment. Debbie Brown says they need to play Will Benson or let him go. It's not fair to him. Where are you playing him? Where are you playing him?
I'm very curious about this as well. I would like to do like a straight platoon with him and Hayes in left field. Because I think that, we've seen a nice little bounce back for him this year, at least against right-handed pitchers. The problem is, I don't know if he's got some sort of quality that Tito just doesn't like, but we just don't see him. And this is one of those things where if Terry Francona had a better season with managerial decisions, I think we would be able to accept it more. But I saw this the other day, and I think it's crazy. The last time he started a game, Steve, was August 1st. And you wonder, you're like, okay, well, he must have been bad that game. No, he was 2 for 3 with a homer and a couple RBIs.
What is it about his 88 appearances this year makes you and Debbie and the fans of Will Benson, you as the president of the Pumper Car, what is it about Will Benson's 233, 276, 403 slash line against right-handed pitching? What is it about that slash line that makes you want to straight platoon him in this lineup? What is it about this statistical performance that continues to have people banging the drum to play him? I don't understand it. Someone please explain to me what it is I'm missing about Will Benson.
It's the slugging. I just don't see anybody else in this lineup that is the big home run threat that he is. And I get it. He's not like an automatic home run threat. We're not talking about him pushing anybody for some sort of, home run award. But at the same time, name for me the other guys in this lineup you trust to have more power than him. That's where I come from with him. I get it. The other stats aren't spectacular, but give me the power. The Reds
gonna hit it. I don't know. Is it this? Is Patrick on it? Maybe it's this. Maybe it's an intangible. Is it an intangible? Is it just because he brings the energy? Is he's fun? Because he looks so happy when he finally runs into one. I don't get it. I don't get it.
I just think it's so okay against left-handed pitching this year, against right-handed pitching this year. The number of guys that have a higher slugging percentage than Will Benson. It's interesting because Christian Encarnacion Strand does, so there's that. But it's Noelvi Marte and it's Elly De La Cruz. That's it.
Okay, I don't get it, but you guys.
That's going to be the tough because I feel like this team just.
Will Benson's not on this team next year, right? He's not on this team next year.
Not based on
he's
how
on this team.
Him.
Yeah, I mean he's not right. They're done. He's getting the Nick Senzel treatment right now.
He's here, but he's not here.
Yeah,
that sort of thing. Because he played the other day
it's a failure, though, right? If he's on this team next year, it's a failure. They've moved on from Fraley. If they haven't moved on from Benson and replaced him with a bona fide, isn't it a failure? If we're talking about Will Benson again next year, it's a failure, right?
For meaningful playing time. If he's like the 4th or 5th outfielder, I'm okay with it. But there's got to be a starter ahead of him, and that starter's not Gavin Lux. He's another guy we have a lot to talk about. I don't know. Like I feel like there's a power potential there that the Reds just don't seem interested in, and I think that that's wrong. I think that they should be interested in the power potential that he brings to the plate.
Marte and Friedel have 2 spots locked up for next year. This from Ben. Need to either trade for one more, sign one more, or you go with Hector Rodriguez. That's really probably those are your 3 options. You don't have another option. And we talked about Hector Rodriguez earlier. That kind of feels like a failure if you roll into spring training saying this is our guy, having never seen him done anything.
Right. And what is it? I was looking it up. I remember that Austin Hayes has a mutual option. I forget for how much, because how much will say whether or not it's getting picked up. Because that's going to be a whole. Okay, so $12 million for the mutual option for next year. I don't think the Reds are picking that up. And that's going to leave another spot. They can't just fill it again with another prove it guy because Austin Hayes didn't prove it. That doesn't mean that somebody else wouldn't, but they need an answer. The episode that we're going to do here in a little bit after the season is all said and done is how many positions do the Reds actually have an answer? Not somebody with when you say, all right, for first base, can you write a name and not put a question mark next to him? And that's going to be an interesting little thing that we do because I think you put TJ
because you and I are going to disagree on some of those. So
right. Because I think you put TJ Friedel in center field, and I think you put Elly De La Cruz at shortstop, and I think you put I know you put Ke'Bryan Hayes at third base. If he's on this roster, he's their everyday third baseman.
Right.
But you kind of put a question mark next to Noelvi Marte in right field. He's in right field because it's clear you can't take his bat out of the lineup. He's not in right field because it's clear he's a good right fielder. He's got to develop into that, and he hasn't done that yet. He's got the arm for it. His routes leave a lot to be desired, and he's still learning how to field the position. So it's hard for me to say, ! Noelvi Marte is our right fielder for next year, but the Reds are going to pencil him in that way. But I don't know who you put in left field. I don't know who you put there.
And guys, I see you in the chat. We're going to sit on the Elly to center field conversation for the offseason because it's not going to happen in season. It's not going to happen right now. That's a big talking point for the offseason. I see you guys, but we're saving that for the offseason because it's not going to happen right now.
Quick preview on that, though. I think that it's more of a conversation if we actually see him play some this year because Fernando Tatis actually played in the outfield before he moved to the outfield. And I don't think he will. All right. I'm not saying he will. I don't think he will.
Okay, good. Because I was like, if you're going to like Tito's going to suddenly have some kind of
it would shock
crisis of conscience of what he's done with Elly this year. And
I might get knocked out like from the shock if he puts it in center field at any point this year.
All right. Patrick says he finds it hard that the Reds would move away from Hayes this offseason. He's the best third baseman, still under contract. He'll be here. I listen, I'm really happy with the Ke'Bryan Hayes trade. I really, really am. And I would not be upset at all if that's exactly how it plays out. But I'm just saying that what they gave up to get him, and as he's played, what they could get for him in the offseason would be a significant return on investment, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but all the things, you're right. Like he's a Gold Glove third baseman. He's hitting some now, and he's under contract, and he's a defined expense that you know what you're going to have. I get it. I'm just saying he's got some value now.
It's like a baseball stock market argument for trading Ke'Bryan Hayes is what you're saying.
Yes.
And that is
buy low, sell high.
And that is how a front office leader should approach it, whether he's GM, president of baseball ops, whatever his title is. That's how he should approach it. He should not approach it as, well, we got this guy. He's locked up for cheap. We're fine. Like, he needs to have the best version of his team. If Ke'Bryan Hayes is part of a trade that brings you the everyday outfielder that you need, that is a cleanup hitter with crazy power, then how can we say no to that?
Yeah.
But again, that's a lot of what
it goes back to the, like, nobody's truly untradeable, right? Like,
right.
If you pick up the phone and someone's willing to, give you the baseball equivalent of the Herschel Walker trade in the NFL, where there's like, here's my whole draft for the next 3 years, go.
Not even Herschel Walker. Like, think about Micah Parsons. Like, the Packers didn't hardly, I think it's universally understood that they got one of the best players in the league for a trade that is not that expensive at all. And so if the Reds are open to that and they can send Key Brian Hayes and somebody else and get a game changer, they should. And I would like to see Nick Krall take that kind of risk, because he has yet to take a risk with this team.
Yeah, no real big swings, right? I mean, there's been some...
Even Hayes is not a big swing. That was not a big deal. There's
been some check swings. There's been some...
There's been some singles, some good piece of hitting singles is what Nick Krall's going for with this roster.
Couple bunts mixed in there somewhere. Tito was trying to ask for those. Tito was calling for the bunt. That's how that went down. All right, let's get a couple more of these in, guys. If you got something you've been sitting on and you want to talk about it real quick, we're fast approaching the end of today's show, but let's do this. Here's where we're gonna go for the last one of the day, Jeff. This from Because Stone Cold Said So. Is Matt McLain in the Reds' future? 100%, no doubt. To Jeff's point of who can you write next to a position and not put a question mark, Matt McLain next season is the Reds' starting second baseman. No question mark. It's a period. Done.
And I think that he is a guy that doesn't have to do a whole lot in September to prove that. Like, as long as he doesn't do what he's done for most of the season, and we're seeing him really start to turn a corner, he looks better at the plate, looks more confident at the plate. His pitch recognition looks a lot better than it has been. Like, as long as he just keeps doing this for the rest of this month and finish out the season the way that he's been doing this first week of the month, I think that there's no question about it.
Yeah, all of his numbers are trending up. The power is coming back. His swing looks much more comfortable. We've talked about the impacts of shoulders and how it's not an easy bounce back. And I think, Brantley talked about this on the broadcast a couple days ago, that, the reality of the situation is, while Matt was back on opening day, he's really only now back. He's only really now healthy and comfortable and able to swing through like he wants to swing through.
Yeah, I see a different version of him at the plate right now. And I will say this to Stone Cold Says his point. He is absolutely unequivocally part of the future of this team, 1,000%. The question will be, where's he playing the lineup? And that's where we will have our discussions about Matt McLain this offseason is do you put him back in that 2 spot? Because that's where I have a little bit of problems just writing him in there right now. I don't know that he can do anything to make me feel comfortable about that for the rest of the year. I think Noelvi Marte might have took that from him. But that's going to be the discussions of it. Like, it's him, it's Marte, it's Elly. Those guys are unequivocally part of what's going on for this team right now. It's just in what capacity, where they fit in the lineup, where they fit into the fielding alignments, all this other stuff.
I agree. It's going to be fun. Lots of conversation coming your way, folks. Lots more to talk about. We're here with you the rest of this season and through the off season. Jeff's not lying. 400 beach thoughts. He sent long notes in the notes. I want you to know. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Reds. Thanks, as always, for making us your first listen each and every day. We appreciate you being here when we do these lives. We appreciate you in the comment sections. Love it so much. Make sure you go check out Tim Daniel after the game tonight. He's staying up with you. He's going to do the Reds postcast live after the Reds Padres. And go check out the Locked On MLB feed as well. You get Sully over there with a national perspective, and you get Locked On MLB Game Night. They're watching every single game, so you don't have to. What we're going to do for you is keep gathering up the news, the notes, the information, the rumors, and the reports, and bringing them right back here to keep you guys locked on Reds every single day. Didn't even bring me a souvenir from the beach. You sent me 400 show topics.
I thought that was a souvenir.
Oh, Jesus.